Welcome, dear listener. Tonight we journey far back into the heart of ancient Greece. Imagine a land of bright skies, rolling hills, and seas whispering against the shore. This is Attica, a place of fertile soil, rivers flowing gently, and people filled with hope. Long ago, the world was alive with gods who walked close to mortal lives. Their presence shaped the earth, the seas, the winds, and the wisdom of humankind. Among these divine figures, one would forever leave her mark on this land. Her name was Athena, goddess of wisdom, courage, and the light of knowledge. But before her name echoed through history, Attica faced a choice of destiny. The people longed for a protector, a divine patron to guide their growing city. The gods on mighty Mount Olympus turned their gaze to the rising land. They watched, curious, to see who would claim this flourishing home. Two powerful deities stepped forward, each eager to leave a gift. From this contest would emerge not just a patron, but a legacy eternal. And from this story, a city would be born, one that shines still today. A city crowned with wisdom, art, and the memory of a goddess. This is the tale of Athena and the city that carries her name, Athens. Let us begin with the land itself, the cradle of the story, the region known as Attica. The sun rose gently over the hills, pouring golden light across fields of grain and groves of trees. Birdsong filled the air, echoing through valleys where shepherds guided flocks to fresh pastures. Rivers wound like silver threads, carrying clear waters to nourish the villages and their people. The sea stretched wide and endless, its waves whispering secrets to the shore with every tide. Mountains guarded the horizon, tall and patient, shaping the borders of this fertile land. The people of Attica lived simple lives, yet their hearts dreamed of greatness beyond measure. They built homes of stone and clay, their fires glowing at night like stars upon the earth. In the market squares, voices rose in laughter, in trade, and in songs passed from elder to child. Farmers tilled the soil with care, trusting the seasons, the rain, and the gifts of the earth. Fishermen cast their nets at dawn, pulling from the sea the food that kept families strong. Mothers wove cloth at the loom, patterns of beauty telling stories without a single word. Children played in dusty streets, their laughter like music drifting across the warm air. Attica was rich, not in gold or treasure, but in spirit, in hope, and in human bonds. Yet even in this harmony, the people felt something missing, something still unclaimed. They longed for a guiding hand, a divine protector to bless their fields and their future. For they believed, as all Greeks did, that gods and goddesses watched the world from above. The mountains, the rivers, and the olive groves seemed alive with divine presence. Every storm at sea spoke of Poseidon's might. Every harvest whispered of Demeter's care. In the clear sky, Zeus's authority seemed to reign, ruling both gods and mortals alike. But Attica remained without a patron, without a deity to call its own. The elders gathered often, speaking of the need for a guardian spirit for their land. The younger voices, too, yearned for a future blessed by the wisdom of Olympus. They looked upon the earth's gifts and asked who among the gods might bring the greatest good. Some prayed to Poseidon, master of seas, whose power could command trade and defense. Others prayed to Athena, goddess of wisdom and craft, whose light brought knowledge and peace. The wind carried these prayers up to Olympus, where the gods listened with watchful eyes. The land of Attica, small yet promising, had captured the attention of the heavens. Every field, every olive grove, every song of the people reached beyond the mortal world. It was clear to all that Attica's future was bright, but also fragile in its youth. Without guidance, the land could wander, like a ship without a rudder upon restless seas. But with the blessing of a divine patron, Attica could rise into glory eternal. The people dreamed of such protection, dreamed of wisdom guiding their councils and homes. They dreamed of strong walls, prosperous trade, and knowledge passed from one age to another. And so, beneath the sun, the people waited, not knowing the gods had already chosen. Far above, on Mount Olympus, the great assembly of deities turned their gaze downward. They spoke of Attica, of its promise, of its people filled with spirit and resilience. Two gods stepped forward, each desiring to guide the land and claim its loyalty. Their decision would change not only Attica, but the course of history for all time. But for now, the land waited, silent and patient, as destiny began to stir. This was Attica, fertile, beautiful, full of dreams, standing on the edge of legend. High above the mortal world, the throne of Olympus gleamed in the endless sky of the gods. Clouds drifted gently around the peaks, glowing gold beneath the watchful sun of heaven. Here the gods gathered, their voices strong as thunder and soft as the breeze. They looked down upon the earth, where human lives unfolded like stories in motion. Attica, small yet radiant, had caught their eyes with its beauty and its promise. The people's prayers rose like smoke from hearths, weaving through the air to Olympus. Zeus, lord of sky and ruler of gods, listened with patience to their humble words. He knew their hearts longed for guidance, for a patron to bless their fertile home. The council of gods assembled, their shining forms filling the halls of Olympus. Each deity spoke of the land, its gifts, its struggles, and its bright future. Demeter praised its fertile fields, seeing hope in the harvests of grain and olive. Apollo admired the songs and voices of the people, sweet as lyres in the sun. Artemis spoke of the forests and hills, alive with wild creatures under moonlight. But the council knew the choice was not about admiration, but about guardianship. Attica required a patron who would stand beside its people for all ages, one who would offer a gift not fleeting, but eternal, wise and enduring. Zeus raised his hand, and silence fell like a calm before the storm. He declared that Attica would be given to the god who offered the finest gift, not a gift of display alone, but one that could serve the people forever. The gods murmured, their eyes shifting to those who desired the honor most. Poseidon stepped forward, his trident gleaming like the depths of the restless sea. His voice rolled like waves, promising strength, wealth, and the mastery of waters. He claimed that the seas could bring trade, ships, and protection against foreign powers. The assembly nodded, for the ocean's might was a gift no land could ignore. Yet another figure rose, her presence calm but radiant with quiet strength. It was Athena, gray-eyed goddess of wisdom, warcraft, and the arts of peace. She spoke not in thunder, but in words that carried clarity like a river. She promised knowledge, justice, and the skills of craft to guide the people's hands. Her vision was not of fleeting power, but of harmony, progress, and endurance. The gods listened, their hearts divided between the might of Poseidon and the wisdom of Athena. Zeus looked upon them both, knowing only the people could decide their true patron. So he declared that the contest would take place upon the land of Attica. Each god would offer a gift, one from the sea and one from the earth. The people would witness these blessings and choose their eternal protector. The council agreed, their voices rising like wind, echoing through Olympus's halls. From that moment, destiny moved swiftly. for the gods had made their decree. Attica's fate rested not in battle or storm, but in a contest of gifts. The people below knew nothing yet, but soon they would see wonders unfold. Poseidon prepared his power, ready to strike the earth with the force of the sea. Athena gathered her wisdom, ready to show the strength of knowledge and peace. The air of Olympus shimmered with excitement as gods whispered of what was to come. Some favored Poseidon's might. Others admired Athena's vision of prosperity. But none could guess which gift would shape history, which gift would endure. And so the eyes of heaven turned to Attica, awaiting the moment of choice. The land lay still, unaware that soon gods would walk its soil with gifts divine. Thus began the contest, not of violence, but of wisdom and promise for all time. The contest was declared, and soon the gods prepared to walk upon the soil of Attica. The people gathered in wonder, for news spread quickly that mighty beings would descend. Farmers left their fields, fishermen their nets, and children their games to witness history. In the heart of Attica, a wide plain was chosen as the stage of fate. The sun shone bright, the air heavy with expectation, as the gods drew near. First came Poseidon, lord of the sea, tall and powerful, his trident gleaming with might. Waves seemed to rise in his shadow, the sound of the ocean echoing at his step. The people watched in awe, their hearts stirred by the strength of his presence. Behind him, the scent of salt and spray lingered, as though the sea itself followed. Poseidon raised his trident high, his eyes fixed upon the fertile land before him. He struck the earth, and the ground trembled beneath the force of his command. From the rock burst a spring, its waters surging with strength and unstoppable force. The crowd gasped as the fountain rose, glittering in the golden light of the sun. The sound was mighty, roaring like the tide upon distant shores. Poseidon spread his arms, his voice echoing like thunder across the plain. "Behold my gift," he declared, "a spring born of my sea, a well of power." The people edged closer, curious to taste the water flowing fresh from the stone. A man bent down, cupped his hands, and lifted the liquid to his lips. He tasted, then paused, for the water was strong, but briny, bitter, and harsh. The people murmured, for they could not drink, nor water their fields with salt. Poseidon, proud, spoke again, promising ships, trade, and mastery of the way. He reminded them that the seas carried wealth, adventure, and paths to faraway lands. His voice carried promise of strength, but also the weight of storms and tempests. Still, many admired him, for his power was vast, and his gift awe-inspiring. The spring continued to flow, a reminder of Poseidon's presence on Attica's soil. Then the plain grew quiet, as another figure approached with calm and grace. Athena, gray-eyed and radiant, walked forward, her step steady as the morning. She carried no weapon raised, no storm, but a presence of quiet assurance. The people leaned in, sensing her gift would be of another kind. She knelt upon the earth, her hand brushing the soil with gentle care. She spoke softly, her voice clear, like wisdom carried on a steady breeze. "People of Attica," she said, "I offer you not force, but a gift that endures." She pressed her spear into the ground, and from the soil a seed took root. Before the eyes of all, the seed sprouted, grew, and became a young olive tree. Its leaves shimmered silver green, its trunk strong though newly formed. The crowd marveled, whispering of its beauty, of its promise, of its peace. Athena rose and placed her hand upon the tree, her words flowing with care. "This tree shall give you fruit to eat, oil to light your nights, and wood to build. It shall endure storms, grow in rocky soil, and offer gifts for generations to come. Her eyes shone with calm fire, not of destruction, but of wisdom and foresight. This is not the gift of conquest, but the gift of life, peace, and prosperity. The people listened, their hearts stirred not by thunder, but by steady truth. They touched the leaves, felt the promise of nourishment, trade, and hope. The olive tree stood as a living symbol, rooted deep in the land they loved. It was humble compared to the roaring spring, yet its strength was quiet and lasting. The people looked from Poseidon's spring to Athena's tree, torn between might and wisdom. One gift promised power, the other promised peace and survival through the ages. The gods waited in silence, watching the mortals weigh the future of their home. For in this choice lay not just the fate of Attica, but of all Athens to come. The people of Attica stood in silence, their eyes moving between the spring and the olive tree. The gifts were both wondrous, yet so different in meaning, in promise, and in vision. The salty water of Poseidon roared with power, but it could not quench a thirsty mouth. The olive tree of Athena stood still and quiet, yet it whispered of lasting life. The elders gathered, speaking softly, weighing the choice with care and deep thought. They knew their decision would shape not only their children, but generations to come. Poseidon's gift was dazzling, fierce, and bold, a show of strength and divine might. It spoke of ships upon the waves, of trade across seas, of power against enemies. Yet the sea was wild, untamed, and storms could bring ruin as easily as fortune. Athena's gift was humble, not a roar, but a gentle promise rooted in the soil. The olive tree gave fruit for food, oil for lamps, and wood for shelter and tools. It promised peace through trade, for its oil and fruit would be sought by many lands. The people touched the leaves, feeling their smooth strength, a sign of quiet resilience. They thought of their families, their homes, their fields, and the future of their children. Which gift would serve them best, not for a season, but for all of time? The crowd murmured, voices rising like waves, some calling for Poseidon, others for Athena. A group of fishermen praised Poseidon, for the sea had always fed their nets. They dreamed of ships strong and swift, carrying their people far across the waters. Yet the farmers lifted their voices for Athena, for her tree promised strength on land. It offered food, warmth, and trade that could flourish even in times of hardship. Mothers held their children close, whispering of the olive tree, a gift of life. Merchants nodded in agreement, for they saw its value in markets beyond Attica. Still, the debate grew louder, the people torn between might and wisdom, sea and soil. Zeus, watching from above, raised his hand, and silence fell upon the plain. His voice carried through the air, commanding both gods and mortals to listen. The people of Attica must choose, he said, and their choice shall bind eternity. The citizens looked to one another, their faces full of wonder and uncertainty. The oldest among them, wise with years, stepped forward and spoke with calm voice. We are not a people of war, nor of endless conquest upon restless waves. We are a people of soil, of fields, of homes that rest beneath the olive's shade. Let our choice be not for power alone, but for the life that sustains us. His words spread like fire, stirring the hearts of those who listened with care. The crowd turned once more to the gifts, weighing them in silence, heavy with destiny. The spring still roared, but its salt burned the tongue and offered no drink. The olive tree stood firm, its leaves dancing softly in the gentle Attican wind. One by one, voices rose. not in anger, but in unity and quiet decision. They chose Athena, the goddess of wisdom, as the patron and protector of their city. Poseidon stood tall, his eyes flashing, yet he did not strike or take revenge. For even he knew the people's choice was their right, granted by the will of Zeus. Athena bowed her head with grace, her hand resting upon the young olive tree. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with warmth as she blessed the land. "From this day forth," she said, "your city shall flourish under my protection. You shall carry my name, and your wisdom shall shine brighter than any jewel." The people cheered, their voices rising in joy, echoing across the hills of Attica. Thus, the city of Athens was born, crowned with the gift of the olive tree. The choice had been made, and destiny took root, as steady as the tree itself. The gods looked on, some in awe, others in silence, knowing history had been written. Athens would grow, guided not by storms, but by wisdom, peace, and enduring strength. The choice was made, and with it, the destiny of Athens began to unfold like a great tapestry. The olive tree grew strong in the center of the land, its roots drinking deeply from Attica's soil. Its branches stretched wide, casting cool shade where people gathered to speak, trade, and dream. Athena, watching over her chosen city, blessed the tree so it would never wither or fail. Seasons passed, and the people learned to use the olive with wisdom and care. They pressed its fruit into oil, golden and smooth, filling lamps with steady light at night. They used the oil to cook their meals, to nourish their bodies, and to heal wounds with care. Its wood became tools, sturdy and useful, helping farmers till the fields with greater strength. Merchants filled jars with oil, carrying them to markets across the Mediterranean. From every port, sailors marveled at the rich taste, the smooth shine, the enduring quality. Athens became known not only for its fields, but for its wisdom in trade and resource. The olive tree stood as both symbol and gift, a promise of prosperity and peace. People began to gather in its shade to settle disputes, guided by fairness and calm thought. Athena's spirit whispered in their hearts, reminding them to seek justice above anger. The city grew not by conquest, but by the strength of wisdom and the wealth of ideas. Children learned the stories of their goddess, their voices carrying her name with pride. They spoke of the contest, the choice, and the gift that had given them their city's soul. Travelers from distant lands arrived, curious to see the olive tree and the city it blessed. They found a people proud yet humble, strong yet guided by fairness and thought. Athens became a beacon, shining not by sword, but by light born of knowledge. In time, temples were built, their stones rising to honor the goddess who gave her gift. The Parthenon would one day crown the Acropolis, a jewel set high above the city. But even before stone met sky, the people honored Athena with offerings of oil and fruit. They carried garlands of olive leaves in processions, singing hymns of gratitude. Athena walked among them in spirit, pleased with their devotion and their wisdom. The city flourished, not in chaos, but in orders shaped by law and thoughtful governance. Leaders sought counsel in the shade of the olive, listening before they spoke, deciding with care. Farmers tilled the land with steady rhythm, merchants traded fairly, children studied with eagerness. The olive tree became more than food or trade. It became a symbol of identity. Its leaves crowned the heads of victors, athletes who raced beneath the bright Greek sun. Its branches were woven into wreaths, a mark of honor, a prize of dignity and worth. Thus, the spirit of Athena touched every part of life, guiding hand and heart alike. The people found strength not in domination, but in unity, knowledge, and shared purpose. Other cities rose, their power fierce, their armies large, their wealth vast and fleeting. But Athens grew steady, like the olive tree, slow but lasting, fragile yet enduring. Its roots sank deeper, its branches reached wider, its gifts multiplied through careful use. Generations came and went, each planting new trees, each blessing the soil with care. The olive spread across the hills, dotting the land with silver-green crowns. Travelers spoke of Athens as the city of the olive, wise, fair, and guided by its goddess. The gods themselves watched with wonder, seeing how mortals thrived not by might, but by thought. Even Poseidon, though once defeated, acknowledged the greatness that wisdom had sown. Athena's gift had proven true, not for a day or a season, but for all time. And so the legend of the olive tree grew side by side with the legend of Athens. The people flourished under its shade, their lives bound to the wisdom of their goddess. The city's heart beat in rhythm with the rustling leaves, calm, steady, and eternal. Thus, the story of Athena and her tree became the living story of Athens itself. Athens grew in strength, but not by armies or conquests, rather by the spirit of wisdom and learning. The olive tree, standing tall in the heart of the Aeol city, became a living school for its people. Children gathered beneath its branches, their teachers guiding them through letters, numbers, and stories. They learned not only to count and read, but to think, to question, to seek truth beyond words. Athena's whisper filled their lessons, reminding them that knowledge was a treasure greater than gold. Philosophers emerged, men and women who sat in open spaces, speaking of justice, virtue, and the soul. They asked, what makes a life good? What is beauty? What is truth? What is the divine? The people listened, debated, and carried these questions into their homes, their markets, their courts. Unlike other cities, Athens did not silence voices, but welcomed thought, even when it stirred discomfort. This freedom became its strength, a beacon to those who longed for wisdom and fairness. The olive tree became a symbol not just of food and trade, but of the growth of the mind. Its roots represented deep thought, its branches the spreading of ideas to every corner of life. As the city thrived, Athens began to build places dedicated to learning, art, and gathering. Open spaces known as agoras, filled with discussion, markets alive with both goods and ideas. Artists carved stone into statues, painters colored stories onto walls, poets gave rhythm to memory. Athena's spirit guided them, for she was not only the goddess of wisdom, but also of craft. Every hand that shaped clay or carved wood felt her presence, steady and inspiring. The olive oil itself became a symbol of excellence, awarded to athletes who won in contests. Wreaths of olive leaves crowned their heads, celebrating not only strength, but also harmony and honor. Thus, Athens became a place where the body and the mind were equally cherished. Visitors from distant lands came to witness this city of wisdom, art, and open thought. They marveled at its temples, its theaters, its markets, and the calm order of its people. Stories of Athens spread, carried across seas by merchants, poets, and travelers who had walked its streets. The gods watched, some in wonder, others in envy, at how Athena's city was flourishing. Even mighty Zeus smiled, seeing mortals grow not through force, but through knowledge and reason. Poseidon remained distant, yet he could not deny the olive's gift had built a lasting legacy. Athena herself walked unseen through the city, her presence in every stone, every word, every song. She listened to the philosophers, pleased by their devotion to truth and their courage in thought. She blessed the artists, whose hands created beauty that would echo through centuries. She watched the children, their laughter beneath the olive tree, their eyes bright with curiosity. The city lived in harmony with her gift, and in return, she gave them her spirit. But Athens was not without trials, for every city faces storms, both within and beyond its walls. Jealous neighbors, rival powers, and the restless nature of time tested the strength of its wisdom. Yet again and again, the people returned to the olive tree, finding guidance in its silent strength. Its leaves whispered patience. Its fruit offered sustenance. Its roots promised stability in change. Through wars, through disputes, through hunger and fear, the olive tree stood unbroken. And so too did Athens, enduring because its foundation was not might, but wisdom and unity. Athena's gift was proving itself eternal, stronger than bronze, more lasting than any empire. The people began to say that as long as the olive tree stood, so too would Athens. This belief gave them courage, a faith that no storm could truly break their city. Thus, part by part, stone by stone, thought by thought, Athens built not only a city, but an idea. An idea that wisdom is power, that knowledge is freedom, and that unity is strength. It was this spirit, born from the contest of the gods, that made Athens unlike any other. And in the heart of it all, beneath the gaze of Athena, the olive tree continued to grow. As Athens grew, the Acropolis rose like a crown above the city, a hill sacred to gods and people alike. At its summit, temples and shrines were built, each stone placed with devotion and steady hands. Athena watched with pride as her people honored her, not with fear, but with gratitude and love. The olive tree, symbol of her gift, inspired the craftsmen who carved, painted, and built with care. From marble, they shaped statues that captured both beauty and the strength of divine spirit. Every column, every wall, every carving carried whispers of Athena's presence in their city. The Parthenon, greatest among temples, began to rise, gleaming white against the bright Greek sky. It was more than stone, more than a building. It was a prayer carved into the earth. The people filled it with offerings of oil, gold, and garlands woven from olive branches. They lit lamps that burned day and night, their flames a constant tribute to their goddess. Athena's spirit was felt in the Parthenon's halls, a quiet strength that guided all who entered. It became a place not just for worship, but for reflection, a reminder of wisdom and unity. The Acropolis itself was like a beacon, its temples visible from far across the land. Travelers approaching Athens saw it shining, a promise of culture, learning, and divine favor. They knew they were entering a city unlike any other, where wisdom ruled above all else. The festivals of Athens brought people together, their joy filling streets with song and laughter. The Panathenaic festival, held in Athena's honor, was the most beloved of all. Processions wound through the city, carrying gifts of woven cloth, oil, and olive crowns. Athletes competed in contests of strength and skill, their victories celebrated with wreaths of leaves. Poets recited verses, musicians played flutes and lyres, dancers moved like waves upon the sea. All of Athens joined in, celebration, young and old, rich and poor, united as one. The olive oil flowed, filling jars that were awarded as prizes to the champions. These jars, painted with images of gods and heroes, carried Athens' spirit to distant lands. Through them, the story of Athena and her people traveled far, inspiring awe and respect. The gods on Olympus watched the festival, their eyes drawn to the harmony below. Even they marveled at how mortals could weave joy, art, and wisdom into daily life. For Athens was not only a city of temples, but of theaters and stages. In open-air amphitheaters, stories were told through drama, comedy, and song, echoing through the hills. Actors wore masks that captured both laughter and sorrow. Teaching lessons through their art, the people gathered in great numbers, their hearts moved by tales of gods and mortals. In this way, Athens became a place where stories were not just told, but lived. Each performance was a mirror, reflecting both human weakness and the search for virtue. Athena's wisdom guided these plays, reminding the people of balance, fairness, and courage. The city's spirit grew richer with every festival, every story, every shared moment of joy. The olive tree stood as a quiet witness, its leaves rustling in the summer breeze. It seemed to nod gently, as if blessing the unity of its people in celebration. Athens thrived because it was more than walls or soldiers. It was a living idea. An idea that art, wisdom, and devotion could bind people stronger than any chain. The Acropolis, the Parthenon, the festivals, and the olive tree became the pillars of the city. Each one tied the people back to their goddess, their history, and their shared destiny. Through Athena's gift, Athens became eternal not by force, but by spirit and creation. Generations would come and go, yet the festivals would return, the lamps would keep burning, and the olive leaves would always crown the heads of those who honored wisdom. Thus, the heart of Athens beat with joy, with reverence, and with unbroken unity. And high above, Athena looked upon her city, proud of the people who bore her name. Athens was not only a city of temples and festivals, but also a place of thought and reason. Philosophy found its home in the shaded walkways and bustling squares of this proud city. Wise men gathered under olive trees, their voices rising in calm yet spirited discussion. They questioned the nature of truth, justice, and the soul, seeking answers beyond myth. Socrates, with his patient questions, guided the youth of Athens to think for themselves. He asked not for blind belief, but for clarity born of careful thought and dialogue. The young followed him, curious and eager, while elders sometimes frowned at his boldness. Plato, his student, carried forward the flame, building a school where ideas could grow. He dreamed of perfect forms, of unseen truths that guided the visible world of men. Aristotle, in turn, sought wisdom in the details, studying life, motion, and the stars. His mind wandered across nature, politics, and reason, weaving knowledge into lasting patterns. Athens became a garden of minds, where philosophy was not distant, but alive each day. Citizens debated in the agora, testing thoughts as they tested goods in the market. Questions of right and wrong, law and freedom echoed louder than coins on the stalls. The city itself became a teacher, its streets filled with lessons in speech and debate. Children grew learning not only words, but how to weigh them with fairness and care. This was Athena's spirit at work, her gift of wisdom shaping lives and laws alike. She inspired not only temples of stone, but temples of thought that reached beyond time. The democracy of Athens, though fragile, was a bold experiment guided by these ideas. Citizens gathered to speak their minds, to vote, to decide the path of their polis. Not all could join, but those who did felt the weight and honor of their voice. Every decision, every law, was debated openly beneath the watch of Athena's olive tree. The goddess smiled upon this practice, for wisdom grows not in silence, but in dialogue. Through reason, Athens found strength without the need for endless conquest or fear. Her walls stood firm because her people believed in more than just power or gold. They believed in thought, in words, in the power of wisdom to guide their steps. It was not always easy. for strong voices often clashed and harmony wavered like flame. But even in disagreement, the spirit of dialogue kept the city alive and free. The schools of Athens became beacons, drawing students from across the ancient world. Travelers came seeking knowledge, eager to sit at the feet of Athenian teachers. They carried home new ways of thinking, planting seeds of wisdom in distant soils. Thus, Athens' influence spread far beyond her walls, carried by minds rather than armies. Her legacy became not just marble or olive oil, but the art of questioning itself. Philosophy taught the Athenians to look inward, to seek meaning in their own choices. It reminded them that wisdom is not a gift kept, but a light meant to be shared. Athena's gift of the olive tree symbolized peace, but also patience and steady growth. So too did philosophy grow slowly, its roots deepening through years of careful thought. Like the tree, it gave shade, fruit, and oil, nurturing the spirit of the people. The city thrived because it valued the unseen as much as the seen, the mind as much as stone. In every debate, in every lesson, the presence of Athena could be felt, calm and guiding. Her wisdom was not distant, but close, alive in the voices of teachers and students. Athens became eternal because it taught not just how to live, but how to think. And this gift, once given, could never be taken away. For thought lives beyond time. Thus, in the heart of Athens, under the watch of gods and stars, philosophy bloomed, and the goddess of wisdom looked upon her city, knowing her people had embraced her gift. In the heart of Athens, art flourished as much as philosophy, weaving beauty into daily life. The city's walls echoed not with battles, but with voices of poets, painters, and sculptors. Artists sought to capture the divine balance between mortal struggle and eternal grace. Every brushstroke, every carved line, carried the silent blessing of Athena's wisdom. The great sculptor Phidias shaped marble into forms that seemed to breathe and dream. His statue of Athena, towering in the Parthenon, shone with ivory and gleaming gold. She stood not as a distant deity, but as a guardian watching over her people. Her shield and spear reminded all that wisdom defends, while her calm face inspired peace. Theaters became another home for art, where words and music met to stir the soul. Tragedies written by Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides filled the air with noble sorrow. They told of gods, heroes, and mortals, reminding Athenians of fate, justice, and choice. Comedies by Aristophanes, light and sharp, laughed at power while teaching through humor. Crowds gathered in open-air amphitheaters, their hearts joined in rhythm with every story. Masks painted with joy or grief allowed actors to become voices larger than themselves. The stage became a mirror of Athens, reflecting both her greatness and her imperfections. Music, too, was everywhere, from the lyre's gentle notes to the deep echo of flutes. Songs were not only for celebration, but for prayer, memory, and the binding of community. The dance, graceful and measured, traced patterns like stars across the marble floors. In each step, Athenians honored their gods and reminded themselves of harmony and rhythm. Potters painted their vases with scenes of myth, battle, and festival, telling stories in clay. Each vessel carried not just wine or oil, but the spirit of the city itself. These works traveled across seas, spreading Athenian artistry to distant lands and peoples. Through them, foreigners glimpsed the grace of Athens and the wisdom of her goddess. Even the simplest objects bore beauty, for Athenians believed life itself deserved art. The agora was alive not only with trade, but with color, sound, and crafted design. Stalls displayed jewelry of silver, Woven cloth dyed in radiant purples and reds. Art was not confined to temples or palaces. It lived in homes, streets, and festivals. Children learned early to shape clay, sing hymns, and weave patterns that honored Athena. In every hand's work, the goddess was near, guiding them toward grace and meaning. To Athenians, beauty was not vanity, but a path toward truth and divine order. For what is beautiful, they believed, is close to what is wise and just. The olive tree once more appeared in art, its leaves a constant theme of peace. Garlands crowned victors, dancers, and brides, weaving Athena's gift into moments of joy. Athens shone not through conquest, but through the brilliance of her creative soul. The world came to see not her armies, but her theaters, temples, and painted vases. Travelers marveled at how every stone, every statue, every melody held purpose and meaning. They returned home speaking of Athens as the heart of beauty and thought combined. This was the true empire of the city, not of borders, but of inspiration. Athena looked down upon this flowering, proud of how her people embraced creation. She knew that marble would weather, gold would fade, but ideas and beauty would endure. The art of Athens would outlive its age, a song carved in stone and sung in memory. Every sculpture, every play, every painting was a prayer to the eternal. Through art, Athenians learned to see their gods, their world, and themselves more clearly. And so, beneath the bright sky, Athens thrived as a city where beauty and wisdom walked together. Athens grew strong not only through wisdom and art, but through the sea that carried her spirit afar. The Aegean was her pathway, a glittering road of waves leading to distant harbors and islands. Ships with tall sails and sturdy oars left her ports, their hulls filled with goods and dreams. Amphorae of olive oil, fine pottery, and woven cloth traveled across the Mediterranean world. Merchants carried more than trade. They carried the voice and culture of Athens itself. Every journey spread her influence, not by conquest, but by the steady rhythm of commerce. In return, ships returned with grain, spices, metals, and stories from lands far away. The harbors of Athens rang with many tongues, a chorus of languages mixing in the market. Sailors from Egypt, Phoenicia, and beyond marveled at the city crowned by the Acropolis. They brought their songs and tales, and Athens shared hers, weaving connections across seas. The olive tree once more played its part, its fruit pressed into golden oil for trade. This oil became prized in foreign lands, a gift of Athena reaching far beyond Greece. Athens thrived because her lifeblood flowed across the waves, feeding her people with plenty. The long walls connected the city to her harbor, ensuring safety and steady supply. Within them, the people walked with confidence, knowing the sea tied them to survival. The navy of Athens, swift and skilled, guarded these routes, but always with purpose of peace. Her triremes cut through waves like arrows, yet they stood as protectors more than aggressors. The sea, in its vastness, was both friend and test, teaching Athenians patience and courage. They learned to read the stars, to trust the winds, to respect the mystery of waters. Athena's wisdom guided them here too, for she was goddess not only of land, but of craft. The ships themselves were works of skill, crafted with knowledge passed down for generations. Their sails caught the breath of the gods, and their oars moved with human strength and rhythm. Through the sea, Athens became known as a center not just of beauty, but of exchange. Ideas traveled with goods, flowing as freely as the waters that carried the ships. Philosophers' words reached foreign ears, while new insights returned from lands abroad. Athens became a bridge between peoples, uniting distant cultures through trade and dialogue. Her harbor was alive day and night, torches glowing as ships arrived and departed. The smell of salt, tar, and spice filled the air, blending with laughter and bargaining. Children watched in wonder as towering ships came home, their decks heavy with treasures. Families greeted sailors, sharing tales of storms, far-off temples, and newfound friends. The agora swelled with goods from abroad, figs from Asia, silver from Spain, linen from Egypt. Yet for Athenians, the greatest treasure was not wealth, but the wisdom that came with contact. To know the world was to grow beyond one's borders, to see life with wider eyes. Athens learned this lesson well, becoming richer in spirit as well as in trade. Her culture spread quietly, not forced, but carried gently by the tide of exchange. Foreigners returned home with pottery, stories, and the memory of Athens' light. Thus, the sea became her ally, her endless road, her mirror of possibility and hope. Athena's presence was felt even here, in the creak of wood, the snap of sail, the steady oar. She watched over her people as they ventured across waters, guiding them with calm hands. The city that bore her name stood strong, not by isolation, but by open embrace of the world. Athens knew that wisdom grows when shared, just as olive branches spread shade when planted anew. And so, with every tide, the city reached outward, giving and receiving in equal measure. The sea sang to Athens, a song of connection, a hymn of unity across all lands. And high upon the Acropolis, Athena smiled, for her people had learned the wisdom of the waves. The sun dipped low over the Acropolis, painting Athens in gold, as if the gods themselves blessed the city. Shadows stretched across marble temples, whispering of centuries where wisdom had guided the people. Athena's presence lingered in every stone, every olive tree, every story told beside the hearth. Her city was not just walls or markets, but the spirit of a people who valued thought and harmony. The olive branch became their symbol, a promise of peace, endurance, and the gift of the goddess. Generations passed, yet Athens continued to shine, a beacon of knowledge for all who sought truth. In the agora, voices of philosophers echoed, their ideas soaring far beyond the city's borders. Artists carved marble into beauty, their hands guided by the silent wisdom of Athena. Poets sang of gods and mortals, weaving tales that still find hearts in distant times. Every child who gazed upon the Parthenon learned that greatness begins with wisdom, not power. Athena had given her gift, and it lived on in the choices of her people each day. They sought to question, to learn, to grow, to see the world not with fear, but with wonder. Athens became more than a city. It became an idea, one that traveled across the ages. The idea that knowledge could light the path, even when shadows threatened to swallow hope. The idea that beauty and reason could stand stronger than the sword or the storm. In quiet moments, one could almost hear the goddess's voice carried on the evening breeze. She reminded her people to hold fast to wisdom, for it was the truest shield of all. The Parthenon stood tall, not as a monument to conquest, but to harmony and vision. Athenians looked to the future with courage, for they knew their roots were deep and steady. Their city was not perfect, yet it strove toward ideals that lifted the human spirit higher. Through debate, through art, through discovery, Athens carved her place in the story of the world. Travelers who came left not only with goods, but with inspiration that kindled new dreams. The goddess had guided them to see that the mind is the true compass of life. When seas were rough or days uncertain, Athens found calm in the wisdom of her patron. Her people knew that change was constant, but wisdom and courage could steady every tide. Legends tell that Athena still watches from her high temple, a guardian in marble and spirit. She sees children playing in courtyards, elders teaching stories, families tending olive groves with care. She sees sailors preparing ships, philosophers deep in thought, artists lost in their craft. And she smiles, for the city that bears her name still carries her light within its heart. The name of Athens is spoken across the world, a symbol of wisdom, culture, and resilience. Not because of armies or wealth, but because a goddess chose to gift her people with thought. That choice became their destiny, a destiny written in stone, in song, in memory. The setting sun kissed the horizon, casting long rays over the sea that bound Athens to the world. Waves lapped gently, as if singing a hymn to the goddess who had shaped this place. The night would come, but the light of Athena's gift would never fade, carried in every mind. For wisdom, once shared, is eternal, crossing lands and centuries without end. And so the story of Athens is not finished, for each listener carries it onward in spirit. Each olive tree planted, each word spoken in search of truth, continues the goddess's legacy. Athena and her city stand together, eternal companions in the journey of humankind. The city lives on, not only in marble and myth, but in the wisdom we seek today. And as stars rose over the Acropolis, the story of Athens became a beacon in the dark. It whispered to the world, "Seek wisdom, embrace peace, honor truth, and light shall always guide you."